Hello and welcome. Today we are jumping into three powerful shifts that are really reshaping our world as we speak. We're going to talk about everything from these high-stakes political fights to some really confusing economic signals and a wild race to build the future. All right, let's just dive right in, starting with a political crisis that's perfectly captured by this quote. I mean, wow. This is literally how one side is describing the battle in Washington that could shut down the entire U.S. government. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? A potential shutdown, it's not just political noise. This has immediate, real-world consequences for hundreds of thousands of people. And it sets the stage for a much, much bigger story about global instability. So yeah, this standoff in D.C., it's our way in. It's a perfect example of the kind of intense friction we're seeing not just in the U.S., but in political hotspots all around the globe. So what is the actual holdup here? Well, it really just boils down to a major disagreement over healthcare. Democrats are insisting on getting these provisions in there now, but Republicans want to kick that can down the road. The thing is, Democrats feel like they have some real leverage, because in the Senate, Republicans need 7 of their votes to get anything passed at all. And this is not some abstract political game. This represents the actual federal workers who have already lost their jobs or taken early retirement. We're talking about 250,000 people, and that's before a shutdown even officially begins. It just shows you the real-world cost of all this gridlock. So this leads us perfectly into our first huge global shift, political realignment. We're going to zoom out now from this one dispute in the U.S. to see how these same kinds of pressures, this jockeying for power and influence, are cracking alliances all over the world. Now, let's jump thousands of miles from Washington, where another high-stakes political drama is playing out. Over in Moldova, the pro-European party just won re-election. Now, that is a direct challenge to Moscow's influence in a country Russia really considers to be in its backyard. So what's the expected response? Well, analysts are pretty sure Moscow is just going to roll out its usual hybrid playbook. It's a very familiar set of tactics, stirring up protests, spreading disinformation, all designed to destabilize the government and pull Moldova back into its orbit. And that right there, that's the core of our first big shift. It doesn't matter if it's a partisan fight shutting down a government in Washington or this geopolitical struggle over a small country in Europe. The theme is exactly the same. We're living in a world of intense political friction and realignment. Okay, so let's move on to our second shift. We need to see how all this political instability is creating a really, really confusing and volatile economic picture. It's one of those moments where the old rules just don't seem to be working anymore. I mean, just look at this stuff. These signals from the U.S. economy are all over the place. On the one hand, people are still out there buying things, spending is strong. But if you ask them how they feel, confidence is low, and at the very same time, the demand for new workers is cooling off. It's a puzzle that has a lot of economists scratching their heads. And if that wasn't confusing enough, you've got governments making these aggressive policy moves. The U.S. government is now pulling in a staggering $375 billion every single month just from tariffs. I mean, this isn't some temporary thing anymore. It's a core part of their strategy. But it also creates just massive uncertainty for businesses trying to plan for the future. And then you have what might be the single biggest economic force in the world right now, China's industrial policy. I mean, China already makes 1/3 of everything in the world, and their plan is to make even more. This creates a flood of cheap goods, which, can be great for shoppers, but it is a direct threat to industries in a lot of other countries. So you put it all together, you've got confused consumers, unpredictable governments, and intense global competition. What do you get? You get businesses hitting the pause button. With this much uncertainty in the air, trying to make a big, long-term investment decision becomes almost impossible. But, and this is a huge but, while all that traditional business investment might be stalling, there are 2 enormous high-stakes races that are accelerating like crazy. And this is our third and final shift. This is where the smart money is going. The first race is all about building the foundational infrastructure for the future. And that future is really about one thing: artificial intelligence. Companies are just pouring unbelievable amounts of money into building out the new data infrastructure that AI needs to actually work at scale. And you can see the whole story right here in the numbers. While that general business investment is basically flat, spending on intellectual property products, which is where AI lives, is surging at a 14% annualized rate. It's a massive shift of capital toward the technology that's going to define the next decade. Okay, so that's the tech race. The second huge bet is on security. In a world that just feels more and more insecure, where alliances feel a little less certain, nations are fundamentally rethinking how much they need to spend on defense. They're getting ready for a more dangerous future. And the scale of what's being talked about here is just massive. The debate is about jumping from spending 3% of the entire economy on defense, all the way up to 5%. Now, that might not sound like a huge jump, but it is. It would force incredibly tough choices about what other public services get cut, especially when national debt is already so high. So, what's the big takeaway here? In a world that's so full of friction and confusion, where should we really be focusing our attention? Let's just quickly recap the 3 powerful shifts we just walked through. So there you have it. These are the 3 dynamics that are defining this moment: intense political friction, deep economic uncertainty, and at the very same time, a high-stakes race to build the future of both technology and security. And they're all connected, each one feeding into the others. And all of that leaves us with this final, and I think crucial question. As these powerful forces keep colliding and reshaping everything, the race is on. The question isn't if the world is changing, but who is going to be in the best position to navigate all this instability and win whatever comes next?